والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك سوط عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I hope you are doing well, inshallah. Tonight we have a program for the Shahadat of Imam Ali an-Naqi alayhi salam. My sincere condolences to you all for this Shahadat. We're going to begin the program with a Urdu poetry recitation by our dear brother Muhammad Aziz. So inshallah he's going to be reciting, followed by speech by Sheikh Salim Yusufali, inshallah.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. हाय करबला वालो, हाय करबला वालो, ए खुदा के बंदों में मुंतकिब खुदा वालो, تحت انما والو تاج حل عطا والو شان مصطفیٰ والو وضع مرتضی والو کیا وفا پہ جان دی تم نے اے وفا والو ہائے کربلا والو ہائے کربلا والو چھوٹے چھوٹے بچوں نے جنگ کی اجازت لی بڑھ گئے جوان بن کر کم سنی سے رخصت لی قوم کی حمایت میں عزت شہادت لی زندگی کو کیا کہیے موت سے بھی خدمت لی ہائے کربلا والو ہائے کربلا والو حق پہ مرنے والوں نے جان دی سلیقے سے شوق سے تمنا سے عزم سے ارادے سے زندگی نہ کی پیاری فاطمہ کے پیارے سے ماں کی گود سے آیا کوئی جھولے سے ہائے کربلا والو ہائے کربلا والو کوئی تم میں اکبر تھا کوئی تم میں اصغر تھا کوئی ثانی جعفر کوئی مثل حیدر تھا کوئی قدر و قیمت میں دو جہاں سے برتر تھا زیر تیغ کربل میں فاطمہ کا گھر بھر تھا ہائے کربلا والو ہائے کربلا والو اس طرح کے عالم میں پھر نہ دل جگر دیکھے در پہ آ کے ماں نے جنگ کے ہنر دیکھے اپنے چاند کے ٹکڑے خون میں تر بتر دیکھے ریگ گرم لاشے پر برچھیوں پسر دیکھے ریگ گرم پر لاشے बर्छियों पसर देखे हाय कर बला वालो हाय हाय कर बला वालो चलो
Jazakallah, Aziz Uncle, for the salam. Up next, we're going to have Sheikh Salim Yusufali continue the program. Before I introduce him, just a reminder that we're going to have a program for Dua Tawassul on coming Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. inshallah, and then we're going to have our typical Thursday night programs as well. And the coming Tuesday night program is also going to be conducted by Sheikh Salim Yusufali. Please invite Sheikh Salim Yusufali with salawat, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين وسيد المرسلين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعن الله الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من ليلتنا هذه إلى قيام يوم الدين. Respected elders, brothers, sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight, we've been blessed to come together to commemorate and mourn the martyrdom of our beloved 10th Imam, Imam Ali ibn Muhammad al-Hadi an-Naqi alayhi salam. I want to express my condolences to the Imam of our time, Ajallahu Farajahu Sharif, on the martyrdom of his dear grandfather. Definitely on an evening like this, the Imam alayhi salam, when he would be thinking about his grandfather, he would be mourning him and he would be filled with grief over the injustice that was done to him and to his forefathers. And my condolences to all the believers and all the seekers of truth and the seekers of wisdom on the martyrdom of this great Imam. Inshallah, in order to make sure that we're doing our duty as the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, I think it's important for us to remind ourselves of who the Imam was and to see if we can gain some glimpses of the different aspects of the struggles that the Imam alayhi salam had to go through in his life. It was when the Imam alayhi salam was only 7 or 8 years old that a very special incident took place in the life of the Imam alayhi salam. His father, Imam Muhammad al-Jawad alayhi salam had been summoned to Baghdad by the Khalifa of the time, la'anatullahi alayhi. They felt that the Imam alayhi salam being in Medina was a severe threat to their institution, and they knew that the hearts of the believers and the hearts of the general populace were being attracted to the Imam alayhi salam. So they said that it's better for him to be near us in Baghdad. Imam Jawad alayhi salam was Imam Hadi alayhi salam, Imam Ali an-Naqi was just a child at that time, 7 or 8 years old, and the report says that he was with his instructor who was teaching him how to write, or he was dictating to him. And in the midst of dictation, suddenly the Imam alayhi salam began to weep. And the teacher asked him, "What is wrong? Why do I see you crying like this?" The Imam alayhi salam tells his teacher, "If you'll permit me, I will go inside the house for a bit." The teacher gives him that permission. The Imam alayhi salam goes inside of the home, and while the teacher's waiting for him to come out, there are a lot of cries and sad noises coming from the house. And then the Imam alayhi salam returns, and the teacher asks him, he says that, "What is it that happened? Why is it that I see you crying like this? What did you go and tell the people of your home?" And the Imam alayhi salam says to him, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." He says that my father, Imam Muhammad al-Jawad alayhi salam, has been martyred and he has left this world. The teacher asks him, he says that, "How did you know this? I mean, you're in Medina and your father is in Baghdad. How can you say such a thing like that?" The Imam alayhi salam tells him something, and this is something very deep and profound here. He tells him that, "I felt a type of grandeur in my heart of the jalal of Allah that I never felt like this before. And through the presence of that feeling and that awareness, I came to know that my father has been martyred." Brothers and sisters, what's the secret here? What's the connection between this jalal of Allah, the azama, the greatness of Allah that the Imam is perceiving, and his father being martyred? Our great scholars have told us that this is the greatness and the knowledge of the greatness of Allah, the special knowledge that is given to the Imam of the time when he becomes the Imam of the time. Until that time, the Imam alayhi salam, Imam Ali ibn Muhammad al-Hadi an-Naqi, he was the child of the Imam. But this was the point where he became the Hujjah of Allah on the earth, and he became the Imam of the time. But it was through his being orphaned at such a young age. Now you can imagine that for the Shia at that time, it would have been something normally very difficult to have a leader who's a child, but there was a precedent here. In the case of Imam Jawad alayhi salam, he had also become an Imam when he was a young child. And so for Imam Hadi alayhi salam to be 7 or 8 years old, this was not something that people found to be a challenge, and they accepted him as the Imam, and he became known as Ibn al-Rida, the grandson of Imam Rida alayhi salam, because we know that all the son and the grandson and the great-grandson, they were all known as Ibn al-Rida because of the prominence of Imam Rida alayhi salam. And Imam Hadi alayhi salam an-Naqi, Imam Ali an-Naqi, he was somebody who, just like his forefathers, he won over the hearts of the people. Through his akhlaq and through his outstanding character, he was able to even take the enemies and to change them completely. What happened was that during his life, as his popularity began to grow and his knowledge became renowned amongst the people, they realized that he too is, like his forefathers, truly the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Khalifa of the time began to get jealous of him and worried about him. So there was somebody in the court of Mutawakkil, la'natullahi alayhi, his name was Burayha, and Burayha was the one who was sort of advising Mutawakkil. He would tell him that, look at, you have this descendant of the Prophet, if you don't do something about him in Medina, then you'll have a revolution taking place. Summon him to where you are, and you can take care of him there, and you can keep an eye on him, and maybe the people will think that he's supporting you. So Mutawakkil was in Samarra at that time, and Mutawakkil agreed to Burayha's suggestion, and Burayha himself was sent to Medina to accompany the Imam in this journey to Samarra. Now, along the way, Burayha strikes up a conversation with Imam Hadi alayhi salam. And he tells him that, you know very well that I am the one who is the reason for your being exiled from your hometown. If you complain about me in any way to Amir al-Mu'mineen, meaning the Khalifa Mutawakkil la'natullahi alayhi, if you complain about me to him or to any of his ministers or to any of his courtiers, if you're the reason for me getting punished, then I'm warning you right now that I am going to order that the trees in your garden be burnt down, and that your farm be destroyed, and this thing and that thing, and I'm warning you, and you better take my threat seriously. This is what he tells the Imam along the way. And the Imam alayhi salam looks at him and he responds to him, and he says that, why would I want to complain to Mutawakkil, to a human being, when last night in my munajat with Allah, I already complained to him and I brought my case to him over the injustice that you've done to me? What was it that Burayha was thinking? He thought that just like the other people he was dealing with, that Imam Hadi alayhi salam was one of those, maybe a political figure. He was doing things for worldly politics, and he thought that by talking like the game of the dunya, that somehow he would be able to make the Imam alayhi salam fall into line the way he wanted him to be. He was using him as a way to secure his own political objectives. But through the speech of the Imam alayhi salam, something about what the Imam said and the way he said it, it shook him to the very core. Here's a staunch enemy of the Ahlul Bayt, somebody whose mind is twisted, somebody who's infatuated with the dunya, but suddenly when he encounters the purity of the Imam and this connection that he has with Allah, and he realizes that the Imam alayhi salam is not on the level that he's thinking, he's way, way above that. And he realizes that this is reality, this is truth. And he falls to the ground. He's trembling. He says that, is there any way that you can forgive me for what I've done? And the Imam alayhi salam says that, yes, I forgive you for what you've done. This is just one example of the profound akhlaq of the Imam alayhi salam. That here they were thinking that by bringing him to near the court, that somehow they would be able to, maybe defame him or to somehow associate him with the court. But instead, what they saw was that as the time went on, as the years went on, the reputation of the Imam alayhi salam began to grow and grow amongst the people. Mutawakkil, I want to spend a few minutes talking about Mutawakkil and what kind of person he was. Mutawakkil was somebody who was very much a Khalifa who was somebody who was ruling for the dunya. If you go and study the history of the Abbasids, they say that they had a golden age in their empire, and Mutawakkil was known as the last Khalifa of the golden age. What do they mark the goldenness of this age by? And why do they call it gold? It's very interesting if you go and study what is it that they're looking for. How do they characterize something which is golden? Well, they say that he was renowned for building. He thought that there was a lot to be accomplished in building great structures. And so they say that during his time, he commissioned 20 palaces to be built. And one of the structures that he built was the great mosque of Samarra. Even until today, the minaret of this mosque still stands. You can look it up, and it's like in a very old Mesopotamian style of a minaret. It's tall, it's very wide as well. And that was something that he took great pride in. He took great pride in having the biggest mosque in the whole world at the time that he was the ruler. It's very interesting. If you go and search up on this, you'll see that in the United Arab Emirates, the Sheikh of the UAE, in not too long ago, he commissioned that a mosque be built, and the pillars and the minarets of the mosque are very similarly designed to the mosque of Mutawakkil, the great mosque of Samarra. Now, I don't know what they were thinking when they built such a thing, what kind of influence they wanted to get, and why they would choose his mosque and his architecture as an exemplar. He was somebody who, when during his time, he wanted his palace to be built in a way that there would be a nice stream that would be flowing by, and in his hastiness and in his arrogance, he brought in somebody who was an architect from outside of the city who didn't really understand the local geography, and he ended up building something which there was no water except for during the high season when there was flooding taking place, and they say that was like one of the major. It was a royal mistake that the engineer had made at that time. But the point is that this is the type of thing that Mutawakkil was into. But during his quest for these type of achievements, what was he doing to the people? If you study the history at that time, you see that he did some things which were very discriminatory. He made, for example, he made the Jews and the Christians who were living in the Muslim lands, he made them dress in a certain way that they would be known as Jews and Christians. They would have to wear certain colors and certain types of robes, and there was strict rules about how they can ride their horses, and they can work in the fields, and a lot of discrimination. But perhaps his most profound discrimination and the most unjust of his injustice was when it came to the Mu'tazilis, and in particular the Shias. The Abbasids before him had oppressed the Shias, but Al-Mutawakkil took it to a different level. As an example, I want to share with you the story of Ibn as-Sakit. Ibn as-Sakit was one of the great companions of Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam. He was a staunch Shia. Ibn as-Sakit his real name was Yaqub ibn Ishaq, and he was famous for being an expert in the Arabic language. So Al-Mutawakkil had two sons, and he was looking for a tutor who would teach his sons like very good Arabic, and he wanted them to be the best. And so the people told him, well, the best person of the time, the best teacher, the expert is Yaqub ibn Sakit. He can teach them. So Al-Mutawakkil commissioned him to be the teacher for his sons. And after some time, he noticed that his sons were starting to develop an affection for the descendants of Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And he realized that the influence was coming from none other than the very teacher that he had commissioned to instruct his sons. After all, we know that the role of a teacher is very profound. I mean, this is just one example of how even within the palace of the enemy, the hearts can be formed in a way completely opposite to what the father would want because of the influence of the teacher. It's very, very important to have the right teacher teaching our children. So here, Ibn Sakit is now, he's targeted, and Al-Mutawakkil summons him. And he tells him something. He asks him something. He says, tell me something. He wants to test him. He says that in your estimation, who is more noble? My two sons, the sons of the Khalifa, or Hassan and Hussain alayhim as-salam? And Ibn Sakit looks at him and he tells him that in my opinion, Qambar, the slave of Imam Ali alayhi salam, is more noble and more worthy than your two sons, let alone talking about Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain alayhim as-salam. Al-Mutawakkil was very upset at Ibn Sakit. And as a way of teaching him a lesson, but more than that, he wanted to teach the Shia a lesson. He ordered that, and my apologies, to those of you who are sensitive, but some of these things we have to know. We have to realize the depth of the injustice. He ordered that the tongue of Ibn Sakit be taken out, but from the back of the neck, from that way. Okay, you can just imagine the gruesomeness of that act. And this, uh, you know, punishment led to the martyrdom of Ibn Sakit. This is just one incident which shows us how cruel he was. There's the incident of how he destroyed the haram of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, how he ordered that the farmers farm the land around that, and many other incidents of oppression to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. One of the things that they had done was when they brought Imam Hadi alayhi salam to Samarra, he wanted to somehow, play games. He was very cunning. So what he did is he had him spend his time in the neighborhood which was used for caravans that were passing by, kind of like a rest area. Now, you can imagine, how it would be to live in a rest area. It's not the best of places. It's not like a home as such. It's a place where everyone's always coming and going. You can't find typically that peace of heart. But there's a very interesting incident of one of the companions of Imam Hadi alayhi salam who goes to him and he visits him in Samarra and he sees what kind of conditions he's living in. And he tells him that, he's overcome. And he tells the Imam alayhi salam, he says, they may be sacrificed for you. In everything, they want to blot out your light. And they've made you live in this type of place right here. He just overwhelmed at the injustice being done to the Imam alayhi salam. And at that point, the Imam alayhi salam, he wants to somehow give him some comfort. And I'm saying this because, brothers and sisters, these are things that we can learn from. We can apply these to our lives. When we look at our situation, when we look at the situation of believers throughout the world, when we look at the type of oppression that's taking place, racial discrimination here in our home countries, or let's say the type of oppression taking place against, the people of Yemen, the people of Palestine, these are things which very much trouble us and disturb us. And sometimes we wonder, where's the hope? So the Imam alayhi salam tells his companion, he tells him that you think that this is the place I'm living in, but let me show you the reality of what is beyond this dimension. And the Imam alayhi salam somehow introduces him to the world of malakut. According to one of our great scholars, Ayatollah Jawad Amali, when he's commenting about this hadith, he says that the Imam alayhi salam showed him a way to the malakut, the higher dimension of reality that exists beyond this mulk, the world of mulk in which we are in right now. And there, the companion sees the gardens underneath which rivers flow. He sees, creatures from the heaven. He realizes that there's more to existence than just this mundane world. And at that point, he gets some comfort in his heart that this is the reality and this is the type of experience that the Imam alayhi salam has. It's very interesting. If you go and study the life of the Imam alayhi salam, there are many incidents in which the Imam alayhi salam would take a situation which would seemingly be difficult, but allow the people who would be taking advice from him to see it in a different way. He would change their perspective on it. This is just one of them. The man came to him and he's thinking that the Imam alayhi salam, that this is all that he has. The Imam shows him that, no, there's more to my existence than just the place that I live in and the material goods that I have and the type of home that I have. There's other things out there. And the Imam alayhi salam would do that in many occasions. I don't want to go into too much detail. I'll just mention a couple of ahadith to show the point tonight, and then inshallah I'll move to the ending part of my speech. Let's inshallah recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. There's a number of ahadith where the Imam alayhi salam would remind people about the presence of the akhirah. And he would tell people that when you look at actions that you perform, don't just look at them in the worldly level. Look at them beyond that. And so I'll give you some examples. The Imam alayhi salam said in one hadith, he says that he quoted a conversation that Nabi Musa alayhi salam had with Allah. He says that in a hadith al-Qudsi, Musa alayhi salam asks Allah, he says, what is the reward for somebody who feeds somebody who is poor, seeking the pleasure of Allah. And he says that Allah says to Musa alayhi salam that on the day of judgment, that person will be summoned in front of the entire creation, and it will be said that this person, so and so, is freed from the fire of hell. One example. Example number two. Um, again, from Imam alayhi salam quotes a munajat of Nabi Musa alayhi salam with Allah. He says that in one of these hadith al-Qudsi, Allah tells Nabi Musa alayhi salam, Nabi Musa asks, what is the reward of somebody who keeps his evil nature and controls himself when it comes to interacting with people? Basically, that person doesn't trouble others. They're careful to control themselves. And instead, وَبَذَلَ مَعَرُوفَهُ لَهُمْ. Instead, he spends and expends whatever goodness he has in order to help others. This is something that we can apply in our interactions with others. And Allah tells Nabi Musa, O Musa, the fire will call out to him on the day of judgment and tell him, La sabila li alayk. I have no way of coming to you. You're protected from me. SubhanAllah, it's something which is very profound. Again, like Imam Hadi alayhi salam is using the example of Nabi Musa alayhi salam in his conversation with Allah to teach people that it's more than just this world. I'll give you one more example. Again, the Imam alayhi salam quotes Nabi Musa alayhi salam, says that Nabi Musa asked Allah that, oh Allah, what is the reward of somebody who has the opportunity to be treacherous, but they don't fall back, and they don't cancel an agreement that they made. They don't be treacherous. They keep their trust. They keep the trust that was entrusted to them out of haya of Allah. And Allah responds to him and he says, O Musa, that person will be in aman on the day of judgment. That person will be in safety on the day of judgment. This type of thinking about the akhirah and getting people to realize that this world is filled with trial is something that the Imam alayhi salam was doing. One of the reasons for that is that he wanted to prepare people for the real trial that was going to befall them, which was the ghaiba of the Imam of our time, Ajallahu Farjahu Sharif. At that time, if the Imam alayhi salam had told people that the ghaiba of my grandson is going to extend for more than 1,000 years, perhaps people would have been unable to bear it. But the Imam alayhi salam wanted to prepare the people by strengthening their hearts, getting them to realize that in this world is not, this world is transitory. We have to do what's right. We have to do our responsibilities. We have to be patient. We have to struggle for the truth. And in the long run, we know that the promise of God will come true. So this is a glimpse into the life of the Imam alayhi salam. We talked about his becoming the Imam at a young age. We talked about how the Imam alayhi salam was able to overcome even some of his enemies. We talked about the type of activities that Al-Mutawakkil was engaged in. And then we talked about some of the approaches that Imam alayhi salam was taking to get the hearts ready for the great trial that was about to befall them. Now I want to mention some words about the martyrdom of the Imam alayhi salam. The Imam became the Imam at the age of 7 or 8. He was martyred at the age of 41 years old. Al-Mutawakkil had himself been killed and assassinated by that time. His son had ascended to power, but he too was only there for a short time. And then after him, Al-Mu'taz Al-Abbasi, la'natullahi alayhi, he got into power. And he said that I need to do something to put an end to the Imam and to his popularity. And so, like the other Imams before him, the Imam alayhi salam was martyred. Inshallah, we want to mention some words of musibah for the Imam alayhi salam. I want to just quote one hadith from the Imam alayhi salam, which is very beautiful. We're told in history that the Imam alayhi salam used to frequently spend the night worshipping Allah, and he would engage in special conversation with him. And one of the lines that he would say repeatedly is the following. He would say, Ilahi masi'un qad warada wa faqirun qad qasada لا تخيب مسعاه وارحمه واغفر له خطاه. What does that mean? It means, oh Allah, a sinner has come to your door. A beggar is calling upon you. His hope is with you, so do not reject him and do not disappoint him, and forgive him for his mistakes. Everyone has a type of soulful, soulful words that are within them that sometimes they don't, sometimes they just forget to express them. But our Imams, the Ahlul Bayt have told us that you should spend some time allowing your heart to speak these words which come from within. Right now, it's the month of Rajab, brothers and sisters. Let's use this opportunity to let those mournful words spring forth. Here we see that Imam frequently in the nighttime, he would repeat these type of words that would come from his heart. Imagine the Imam on that last night of his martyrdom, and imagine him saying these same words. Ilahi musi'un qad warada. Oh Allah, one who has committed evil has come to you. Of course, the Imam was ma'asum, but the standard that they would hold themselves to was so high that they would consider even a moment of less attention to Allah as being something that they would have to ask forgiveness for. And a faqir is seeking you out, so forgive him. This is what the Imam was repeating on that night. صلى الله عليك يا علي بن محمد الهادي النقي. صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله. صلى الله عليك أيها الشهيد. One of the legacies and the treasures that the Imam has left behind is the beautiful ziyarat Jami' al-Kabira. I want to begin the Masa'ib by mentioning one line from this ziyarah tonight. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة ومهبط الوحي ومعادن الرحمة. Peace and blessings be upon you, O the family of prophethood, O the people upon whom the angels descend, O the people to whom the revelation was given, O source of all mercy, O those who possess the treasures of knowledge. We don't know too much about the way that Imam Hadi alayhi salam was martyred, but one thing we know about him is that the Imam alayhi salam always had a special mourning for his great-grandfather, Imam Hussain. One time Imam Hadi alayhi salam became ill. He told one of his companions, "Can you do me a favor? Take this sum of money. Prepare yourself for a journey. I want you to go to Karbala. I want you to go to the grave of my great-grandfather, Imam Hussain, and ask for my shifa." The companion obeys the Imam, but on the way, as he's preparing for his journey, another companion asks him, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" The companion tells him what he's going for. The other companion is doubtful. He says that, why would the Imam of the time, the Wali of Allah, want you to go to the grave of Imam Hussain? He could ask Allah himself for shifa. The companion goes back to the Imam. He relays to him the concern. The Imam tells him, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi at his time was the best of people, but he would sometimes go to the Kaaba and he would ask Allah from the Kaaba, who was greater, Rasulullah or the Kaaba, the building? Definitely Rasulullah. But there are places in the world which Allah has blessed. Those places we need to go to and ask our hajat at those places. So go now, go to the grave of my grandfather, Imam Hussain. We ask Allah on this night for the wasila of Imam Hadi by the sake of his great-grandfather, Imam Hussain. You heard how the Imam alayhi salam, when he was a child, he felt the greatness of Allah and he came to know that his father was martyred. His tears had come to his eyes at that time. Maybe he was thinking, if only I could have been there at my father's side, perhaps I could have assisted him. But let us remember another son of an Imam, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam in Karbala. When Imam Hussain alayhi salam was surrounded by the enemy, he cried out, is there anyone to help me? There was no one left. Everyone who could have helped had been martyred. Their bodies were on the battlefield. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam was too weak to get up, but somehow he finds the strength. He picks up his sword, he uses it as a cane. He shuffles out of his tent. When the Imam alayhi salam sees him, he cries out, "Oh Zainab, don't let him go to the battlefield, for the earth will be without a hujjah if he were to be killed." Imagine Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, how it must have been when he heard the cry of Zainab, قد قتل الحسين, Hussein has been killed. No wonder for decades afterwards, Imam alayhi salam's eyes would tear up and he would cry out, لا يوم كيوم الحسين. There was no day like the day of Hussain. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. We ask Allah Ta'ala to accept this majlis from us, and we ask Him to, by the sake of Imam Al-Hadi alayhi salam, to guide us to the way to purify our hearts and to make us those who are true followers and lovers and followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. We ask Him to hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time. For the Sawab and for the sake of all the Marhoomin and Marhoomat, especially the Marhoomin for whom this majlis has been sponsored, Marhoom Syed, Nisar, Hussain, Razvi, and Marhoom Iftikhar, Hussain, Zawwar. Let us gift them with the recitation of a Surah Al-Fatihatul Mubarakah.
سلام به تو که حاجت خدایی، گل بهشت مصطفایی، قریب شهر سامرایی. سلام به تو که حاجت خدایی، گل بهشت مصطفایی، قریب شهر سامرایی، مقام تو اعلی مولا، ترنم دلها مولا، مقام تو اعلی مولا، ترنم دلها مولا، امام هادی یا 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 مولا. شدی پاره جگر به زهر کینه، ما و شرار سوز سینه، گرید به تو یاس مدینه. شدی پاره جگر به زهر کینه، ما با شرار سوز سینه، گرید به تو یاس مدینه. قتیل اعدای مولا، عزیز زهرای مولا، قتیل اعدای مولا، عزیز زهرای مولا، امام هادی یا 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 مولا. تو غریبی و قلب کباب و مرثیه و چشم خراب و حکایت بزم شراب. تو غریبی و قلب کباب و مرثیه و چشم خراب و حکایت بزم شراب و قتیل اعدای مولا، عزیز زهرای مولا، قتیل اعدای مولا، عزیز زهرای مولا، امام هادی یا 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 مولا. السلام عليك يا علي ابن محمد، أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله، رحمة الله وبركاته.